Payments Leaders Show, where I have a fireside chat with handpicked leaders from the industry. They share how they create a human-centered culture with a focus on really how they can embrace opportunities first before then meeting the challenges. Now, we know one of the biggest challenges in the payments industry is on the one hand, keeping up with that industry and all the pace of change, yet enabling people to shine themselves, yet creating high performance for the company. Now, one of the most accomplished people I've seen and I've met is Prakriti Singh. Prakriti is leading a team responsible for MasterCard payment gateway services, also acceptance, as well as digital products, and also the exciting new area of infrastructure application, including crypto, as well as open banking. And this is across obviously high growth areas, including Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. She is a very strong advocate for female inclusion and empowerment. And I'm fascinated to hear her lens on the progression in the Middle East and how the payments ecosystem has rapidly evolved over the last 2 years. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule.
Thank you, Adrian, for having me. It's a real pleasure. And, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I wonder if we could sort of dive straight in. And what are some of the choices that you've made in your career to date?
Well, it's a fairly open-ended question, and I'm going to try and give you a bit of a career journey, and then the choices that I have made. So if I could just pick one word for myself and how I have looked at my career, I think it would be a combination of take an opportunity that looks good, or take a risk that we feel or one feels that might result in something good. So I am a bit of a risk taker when it comes to career choices. I started my career as a coder. I am an engineer by education, and went into a very predictable career back home in India, in coding. And in early days of my career, I kind of felt that I wanted to make a bigger impact on the organization, and hence decided to do an MBA, as many others, of my friends and colleagues at the time were choosing to do. Now, coding and MBA was a obvious beginning to my career, but the interesting thing was the choices that I made after I finished my MBA. I was one of the, in a batch of 400 people, one of the three who decided to come to the Middle East at a time when India was still, and is, as it is today, booming as a economy. And the reason for that is the desire to come and see what the world looks like and works like in a completely different, a part of and a completely different geography. And I have not looked back. I have been working in the Middle East and Africa region for the last 15 years. I've had the pleasure to touch many different countries. Have lost count, but I have traveled and worked and had engagements in more than 30 countries by this time. And I have navigated from being a management consultant to working for the Gates Foundation in a development sector and in development capacity, to working very closely with some large telcos in the region in my consulting days, and then choosing to come into the payments industry. And when I was making the choice to come from management to payments, that was another bit of an unknown, bit of a risk, but the industry as a whole was something that really excited me. I did a small, I would say, when I say small, about 6 to 8 months of just mobile money work while I was a consultant, and I was fascinated by the impact payments was having on businesses, on consumers, and the dynamism with which the industry was moving. And it really got me hooked. That's when I moved to MasterCard. And again, in MasterCard, there's been no looking back. This is my fifth role in the company, and I'm very thankful to be working at a place that is constantly thrown challenges, and has helped me learn new things as I have gone from one position or one responsibility to another. So that's a little bit, making choices where I see an opportunity to make an impact at the end of the day, and being comfortable with the fact that I'm going into a new area. There will be some risk associated with it. I might not know everything about that space, but as long as I am convinced that there is something I can add in terms of value, I'm taking the dive.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that that embracing of risk, and opportunity. There's a balance to be struck there, isn't there? You're responsible for ultimately market making and commercial success in very high growth marketplaces. What part does customer empathy play in creating innovative value propositions in the payment space?
It's a very I think actually that customer and consumer empathy are fundamental to be able to do business successfully. And it is becoming even more fundamental, with increasing competition, with increasing disruption in the payments world. We simply cannot take our products for granted. So I think I see two aspects. As a business, MasterCard primarily and by and large is, we are in a B2B to C space. But we intentionally move towards designing products that we believe will work for end consumers. And so if it works for end consumers, our customers, who we are, who we may say are maybe banks or non-banks, airlines, marketplaces, retailers, telcos, will appreciate, because ultimately we're solving a problem. But as I am running a fairly technology heavy suite of products, I will speak also of customer empathy as being, are we striving every day to make the lives of our B2B customers easy, right? Whether it is from the way that the product is the features and functionalities of what we sell in the market, but not just stopping at the features and functionalities, but how it works from a day-to-day basis. What support do our customers need to be able to retain and win their consumers, right? There are very often, payments has become a fairly complex value chain. And at times we sit maybe 2 or 3 steps far from the end consumer. And so we have to think about the different steps of that value chain, and whether what we are doing is solving for just our direct customer, or also solving for that customer's customer, where it may be B2B, or that customer's consumer, where it may be B2B to B2C. It's become multi-layered. There are 2-3 things that we very intentionally do. The first one is be very close to our customers in terms of having their VOC, the voice of the customer, just sitting, in front of stakeholders, not just, who are making decisions on purchasing our technology, but also who are implementing and operationally running our technology, to get their feedback on how we are doing, and to have that two-way communication on how we can improve our products based on their feedback, not just, in one direction saying, hey, here's my product roadmap and here's what I'm going to bring to you, right? We're informing our product roadmap based on what we are hearing from our customers. And then the second thing is, we frequently do speak to merchants or consumers directly, where we are informing ourselves of the end consumer who's down that value chain, to be able to understand what are they expecting. And as a product organization, we have to be ahead in our thinking to be able to anticipate what are the things that might be required from a platform or a product perspective from us down the road. So while it's very, very critical for us to speak to our direct customer, which may be a B2B customer, it is also equally important for us to be in front of a small merchant or a consumer, to hear how they are thinking and how they are running their business. We get incredible insights when we do that. I was in, what I recall recently, in fact, last year, I was with a partner in Lagos, and we sit in our offices and we create products. But we were meeting with small merchants. I'm responsible for acceptance, so we were meeting with small merchants who are, who basically have a bike and a box at the back of the bike, and they are selling. And it's really incredible to see the turnover that these guys have in terms of their daily sales and the daily flow of money. But it also helps us think about the new ways in which we need to drive our products.
Sure.
We can't rely, for instance, on smartphones to be able to increase acceptance. We are stepping away from devices, but we also have to step away from reliability on technology hurdles that are that are slowing down digitalization. So I think being in front of the customer, both B2B as well as ultimately B2C, is incredibly central to how we think about our products.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's amazing, is that what I'm hearing from you there is the only way you're really going to drive that sort of voice of the customer is, and luckily we're able to travel again now, but actually that face-to-face interaction, I could see how that would work for you in that engagement level, yeah?
It makes a tremendous difference to be able to experience. Empathy is about experiencing the feeling that somebody else is having, right?
Sure.
And that empathy comes from proximity. It comes from being in front of the user, and there's a that when we during COVID we did do quite a bit still remotely, right, over Zoom calls, and remotely we did merchant research in Africa during COVID over Zoom. It was incredibly difficult. And of course had a self-selection bias because we were speaking to merchants over Zoom, and so it was only merchants who actually had good connectivity in urban areas. But I think there is no other way to really empathize with someone unless you are with them and sitting across of them and feeling what they're feeling, whether it's, they're feeling ecstatic about something wonderful that you have done and you want to double down on it, or they're feeling frustrated about something that they did not get and you have to deliver on it.
And as you rightly point out, you can only really get that in 3D, can't you? 2D and Zoom has been well used over that time. That sort of takes us really nicely to I've been reliably informed that you are a leader who's committed to lead with curiosity. I wonder if you could tell us more about where that comes from, and also what the connection is between curiosity and commercial success.
So curiosity, well, it's an interesting word, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to the asking a few W's in my mind, right? Asking why, what, when, where. Does my client want something? Why does my client want ABC? When, where, and what? And the reason why I say so is very often a big part of the solution lies in understanding the problem. I often feel that if we have a very, very good grasp of the challenge or the problem that we as a product organization are looking to solve for, if we understand the problems and the layers of that problem, we can come up with much, much better solutions than if we stay at the surface level. Very often when we, I think this is also a bit of the DNA that we build when we are in the space of management consulting, and
Sure.
that's where learnings from one area move into the other. It's very common in management consulting to be given a very, very high level problem statement. I want to be $1 billion by 2026. And you work with that problem statement and you peel the onion until you get that vision down to strategy down to initiatives down to actions down to execution. And that DNA has just carried on into the way I work. If we have a mandate to reach a certain goal in terms of sales or reach a certain goal in terms of performance, the first question will be, Why? How? Where will I get this from? Why will someone pay me for my product? Why fundamentally, what problem am I solving for them? If we haven't got a problem that we are solving, then we will always be meeting a hurdle. So that's really the essence of, I say leading with curiosity. It's to understand the drivers that can make that can make my product or, our product as a team succeed. The other aspect also is that we are in an industry which is highly disrupted, as I said earlier. There are, multiple payment rails. There are very many different players across the value chain of a payment transaction. And so the other aspect of curiosity is also, as new disruptions come in, we have to question ourselves as to what value can we add in that trend, in that disruption that is unique to us. uh, we we take an example. Let's take an example of crypto, right? We started several years ago with consumers, with this frenzy of consumers investing in crypto, and now trillions of dollars probably sit in that asset class. um, the part of curiosity is around what is the role that MasterCard is playing in the space of crypto. And it's not one, it's many. And as that's the first question we ask, right? That's the first question that somebody asked inside the company. They were curious. What can we do? This is a trend. This is on everyone's mind. What can we do? And from that, what can we do, stemmed what problem is there to solve? Why would a consumer come to MasterCard for crypto? And then it stemmed to, hey, what are the challenges that consumers are facing in buying crypto, in selling crypto? This is the challenge when they try to sell crypto or when they try to use their crypto holdings. There's actually no scalable way to transact. That's a problem we can solve. We can solve that problem because we know how to do it. So curiosity and that questioning leads into finding a way to really take trends and new um, payment methods and what's happening in the payments industry, and to solve it through our strengths, I guess. I mean, that's really the two aspects of it.
Wonderful. I knew, so I could feel your management consultancy training coming in there with how you've taken something, quite a big, what can be quite a big problem statement and actually honed it down to, as you say, peeling the onions there. But also, I love what you're saying there about MasterCard is sort of, this is a disruptor. We're not going to ignore that, but where are we relevant and where could we add value? Because the network at scale globally, but that all starts with the problem statement. So this is fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. Talking of MasterCard, I know, having worked around different parts of the globe with MasterCard, that decency or DQ is something that they're committed to as an organization, and is one of the key things to attract. It was one of the things that attracted me to want to partner with MasterCard as a vendor, because I like working with organizations that do want to have an impact, and doing well by doing good is something that attracted me to the organization. It's part of my personal and business value set. What does DQ and decency mean specifically to you?
So to me, it's in today's day and time, it's a way of working. And what I mean by that is, um, let me maybe do a take on decency or DQ, right? Or what does it mean to me in terms of being decent? It's to challenge my clients, customers, friends, and anyone around me with respect. And challenging with respect is what is one of the fundamental parts of decency, but also, finding a way to support each other in what we mutually want to achieve. So decency, I mean, sometimes it can be construed as being nice. It can be taken as we want to be nice to everyone. We want to say nice things to everyone. Yes, of course, in the way we interact with each other, we want to be respectful and considerate, as well as understanding of their cultural backgrounds as well as the way that they work. But at the same time, on specific initiatives, products, problems, we want to be able to challenge each other directly.
Yeah.
And that's important when working in a industry as a whole, which is moving really, really fast. And so the speed of decision making is critical. To commit oneself to a certain outcome is critical. Um, and that really is what decency means to me. It is the and I also feel that tolerance is critical and important. Along with tolerance, a mutual understanding that if I'm challenging someone, or I'm maybe agreeing or disagreeing with someone, it is on that particular topic, not
Okay.
necessarily
Brilliant.
not
Yeah.
necessarily challenging you as a person. My relationship with you is beyond the topic that we are talking
Wonderful.
about. And to me, I'm not just saying this in the context of MasterCard or where I'm working. It's in the context of many other relationships in general, right? We I'm married now for 13 years. We have two kids with my husband, and we do live in this environment where we challenge each other constantly.
Sure.
We disagree on things, and we have a debate before we arrive at some outcome, right? Sometimes we may agree to disagree, and that's okay. But that does not impact the respect that we have for each other. And so that's really what, from a work perspective, it also translates into being able to live that kind of a work culture where it's okay to challenge.
Wonderful. I ask that question of every sort of senior person I meet from MasterCard, and I get various answers, but there's definitely a thread. And I think it can be misinterpreted as let's be nice to each other. I love the way you've put that in context. Actually, we do have an outcome to achieve, and we do have a task to. I love the challenge indirectly with respect, because you say well, challenge on task doesn't mean I'm challenging you, and actually our relationship at a personal level as well so it sounds very similar to my marriage, where we have very healthy debates in our family on many things, and I have two very opinionated children as well. But actually our collective family, as well as doing business as well, the relationship is beyond this particular task.
Exactly.
Wonderful. We share a passion, I think, for reducing and surpassing the gender opportunity gap. I wonder if you could share your lens on that, please.
You have asked me a question on a topic that I'm very passionate about.
Okay, a press go. You're off, Prac, go.
Look, I think I have lived myself and with my colleagues and friends certain biases that we end up sometimes being subject to, and sometimes just they are in our heads. But when we look at gender equity on opportunity, there are a couple of aspects to it. I think broadly, any large global organization is very conscious about ensuring that there is equal opportunity. And I'm speaking from good experience, obviously, because I work for a wonderful company that ensures that on a daily basis, but also from speaking to several of my friends and other females who are working in other large global corporations. I do feel though that there are still a few things that don't work very well, that ultimately result in the difference in opportunity or equality in opportunity. And I'll break it down. I mean, I'll break down what I think is in my perspective. The first reason is very, very hairy to solve, but we all need to acknowledge that women do have a bigger moral responsibility around their families, And it's not because they don't want to or someone's forcing them to, but it's very, very natural in our DNAs. We do tend to put our children first. We do tend to put their well-being and their priorities first, and it's in our DNA, and that needs to be just accepted. There will be opportunities that we will pass because we can't move to another geography. We cannot relocate. We cannot take our kids out of school. And I've spoken with extremely capable women who are working in certain geographies who do not choose to take a certain opportunity, which may be wonderful because they don't want to move their families. And I have made those choices in my career as well. So that's one part. And I think that as long as from the perspective of a large organization like ourselves or anyone else, that's recognized and that's not taken as a way of, I am not really interested in growing my career. Yep. It's okay, right? No one should be penalized for making a choice where they prioritize their family, right? It's not because, you're not ambitious. It's not because you're not driven. It's not because you're not willing to take on new opportunities. It's just a personal choice that one's made. And that's far, far more prevalent for females and women than it is for male colleagues. And my family is a perfect example. My husband works in Saudi 4 or 5 days a week, and he's been able to make that choice because I've made the choice that I will keep the kids in Dubai and I will be here. So there is a mutual decision we have made, and that's how it is. The second reason for the opportunity gap that tends to happen, and in my opinion is entirely in the control of the woman who's making the decision, is raising your hands for opportunities where you are not going to have to make any personal compromises. So there's still a huge difference in a role gets posted and a man raises their hand and says, this is great, I would like to do it. And very few women raise their hands for that role. Early on in my career, I did not have the data points to believe this, but now that I've been in positions building teams, I can see very clearly that it's very few women raise hands for technology roles, STEM roles, senior roles. There is a bit of a hesitance on saying, can I do this or not? Have I got the experience? Have I done this before? And I think that is, it's a very commonly understood bias, but it's in our heads. It's something that we have to solve. As women, we have to just take ownership, raise our hands, and we have to put ourselves out there. It will create, I think there is a certain discomfort that taking on an opportunity that you have never, a job that you've never done before, it brings with it a certain level of discomfort. And that's a discomfort we have to be ready to be, we have to be comfortable with discomfort. One of the funny things that I tend to do, I have a daughter, and knowing that that inherent bias in women and in girls, perhaps, I deliberately throw her into things that she might not succeed at. She might just completely fail at. And let her have the experience and let her be totally comfortable with it. It's okay if I don't get that right. I mean, it's just fine. There is a bit of perfectionism, tendency for perfectionism, which needs to just be, it's okay to not be successful at something, and it's okay to not do something perfectly. So I think that's the second one, which we can control. And related to that, there are many biases in our heads, whether it's an imposter syndrome or any other bias, which really is in the control of women. I think that's those to me are the two biggest ones. It's really creating the opportunities for women to grow regardless of their personal circumstances. And that's where organizations are responsible. And then taking responsibility for raising your hands, that's where we are responsible for ourselves.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the way you've broken those down almost into controllable and uncontrollable, or uncontrollable and controllable. I think that acceptance, you're absolutely right, is an organizational responsibility, and possibly a wider societal one as well. And I think recognizing that it's just what good actually that commitment from women does actually have across society. I think the second piece, and again, I can only relate this because I've got a 17-year-old daughter now, and we've raised her exactly that way from day one, which was, to go to trial, and she puts herself in uncomfortable positions on a consistent basis. She's a very good coach, and she's coached hundreds of children, different things, but she's very comfortable go into an environment or a sport that she's never been in before. And it's really struck me, just to share my piece, it's like I looked at my childhood and how I was encouraged by my mum particularly, and it was always, you can do, you can do, you can do. And I've sort of flipped that with my daughter particularly, exactly the same. So I don't think this is not biology. I'm convinced this is not biology. There's a real impact we can have with how we raise, and how we encourage. Yeah.
You see, I mean, I was I can't help but refer to something that I experienced very recently, and with Jacinda's resignation, and the whole world talking about whether she should have resigned or not resigned. I think the fact that, and I could call this very often, and I call it out when anyone says this to me, and not in the work sense, but more personally, people will come and say, oh, you know, working women, they are super women, they are doing everything, etc., etc. We're not super women. There is no such thing like super women. We're burning out, and unless and until we're comfortable to not be successful at everything, we will always have that little bit of discomfort.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Something going to give, and as long as it's a conscious choice, it's how it needs to be.
It's interesting. Again, I grew up with very, very strong female role models. So I've never understood men who sort of either put women down or don't think they're equals, but like all of my heroes growing up were women. But also I just think one of the really great sayings I've had, when a strong woman says, I'm good enough. I'm perfect, not a perfect mom or perfect employee or perfect leader or whatever it may be. I'm good enough. And there's this sort of assurance that comes with that. So I know I love your lens on that. Is there anything else you want to say about opportunity, or we could be here a while? I think it sounds something you're very passionate about.
Yeah. Well, we could be here a while, I think.
Okay. It strikes me again, just sort of moving on from that, is really or segue into that you show up as yourself. You're very comfortable with whom you are as a character, and the skill sets and the mindset you bring to any group you're actually in. Whereas, who's been most influential that's enabled you to show up as an authentic leader?
Adrian, I will not be able to call out one person who's been most influential, and I do think that who I am is a series of experiences,
yes,
a series of influencers, a series of successes and failures, and that's really shaped the person that I am. I think there is no. I think there was also. I mean, recently we were in a group of colleagues sharing what would we have done differently, and I would say nothing really that I would have done differently, because every single thing that I have done has contributed to who I am, and I would say, 3-4 big pieces that have influenced me was the first and foremost was the choice to have a technology career in general, which was the first choice that I made, stemmed from the fact that pretty much no one in my family, no women in my family, have any history of engineering. And secondly, my mom was the most educated person in her side of the family. And she was, as I said, her personal choice. She decided not to work. to be able to give me and my sister, all her time. And I thank her every day for every minute that she's invested in both of us. But the choice to have a career was very, very much influenced by her choices and her upbringing. Uh, and the choice to have a technology career was also very, very largely influenced by her science and STEM background. I mean, I used to read her PhD theses. I was fascinated by what she had studied, and it was always, something that was very, very inherent inside the family. We were a STEM family. Um, and the fact that no one else had a career before me, I was the first one, in my family to say, okay, I want to have an international career, and that's a fundamental choice that I made. But after that, also going into management consulting was a big, big learning for me. It was what I wanted to do. I was very, very motivated to take on that career. But very soon I also, as I moved into that industry, and I do reckon things look very different now, and I hope that things look different now. And when I looked up the ladder, I did not see any women whose life I wanted.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I saw very many very successful and very capable women, but I did not see any women whose life I wanted. And that led me to the choice that I made to move from management consulting
Wow.
into the payments business, or into the industry, as we say it. Um, because and that was it. But also, I have had so many fundamental learnings in my personality, in how to present myself, in how to talk to people, in how to show up in meetings, and how to gather and structure my thoughts. It's been an invaluable addition to my personality. Me having children has influenced my personality hugely and tremendously. It has made me, first and foremost, much more patient.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. That's a parent.
And also, I think it has given a very, very good grounding to what truly matters. I truly believe that when something in your life is very high stakes, it becomes the top of your head and the top of your mind, and it can manifest itself into the only thing that you think about. But when kids come into your life, you suddenly just automatically and naturally strike a balance. You become more rounded, and yeah, there are many ways in which it impacts your personality, the way you I guess, work and interact with others. So there's many different influences, and what I haven't mentioned so far is I mean, n number of people inside Mastercard who have actually influenced me. Leaders, my colleagues, sometimes peers, sometimes people who have worked in my team, and most of my managers actually have really helped me through my journey from coming into Mastercard. I've had both my kids in Mastercard, by the way. Both my kids were born in Mastercard, and just helping me navigate as I went through, a motherhood, back to work, back to motherhood, back to work, career navigation. It's so every day I'm thankful for the people who've taken their time and sat down with me and helped me think through situations at work and in life. So no one person that I can call out, Adrian, but as I said, series of experiences, series of people.
Wonderful. I love the breadth you've given that answer, and I think that's one of the recurring themes here is some people just choose to look at the work piece, but I love the sort of the family you came from, but the family you now are part of, and as a mother as well. So wonderful, wonderful. So what do you wish you knew? The sort of 21-year-old question. What do you wish you know now that you would be sharing with your 21-year-old self?
I think just take more risks. This is what I would. This is the only thing that I would say to my 21-year-old self. Um, I think that's been the consistent. Take opportunities when they arise. and don't be too worried about succeeding, failing. Give it your best. That's really what I would say to my 21-year-old self.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this is normally the stage where I sort of try and pull out 2 or 3 themes, etc. But you can probably see I've been furiously writing a load of notes. Can I just try and capture the sort of key essence, if that's okay, from our conversation? I think first of all, well, I think the common theme is about your mindset towards risk and opportunity, that they're inherently linked, and taking more risk and embracing opportunity and being enough, I think, is really important. How you lead with starting with trying to be the voice of the customer and really trying to get that empathy, whether that's not just your customer, but your customer's customer, or customer's consumer at some point. But the value that I really got a strong sense of the value of face-to-face communication for you. I love the way you really did as well, just break down curiosity. Nobody's done that. The sort of 4 W's, the whys. It wasn't not just accepting that problem statement, but peeling the onions. Why, what, where, when, how do we really get that down to some sort of actionable statement? And then also, I think I suppose the one about decency, I think, was really good about how do we challenge directly, yet with respect, and challenging the task and actually respecting the relationship beyond the task and all aspects of your life as well. The obvious passion there you have for the gender opportunity gap, and how it's seemed to me you'd saying it's a 2-way street. There's parts that are uncontrollable. However, for women and people from underrepresented groups, let's embrace what we can do and raise our hands more. And then I think and get out of the comfort zone more as well. I think the other piece for me then was, and again, I could see the pride there you had, obviously, in the access, and you could see, reading your mum's PhD and being a STEM family, you could see what was possible, but you took some different choices, and yet you've integrated those into your family now about how you embrace them. But I think the final one for me, they're about take more risks and embrace opportunities and don't worry too much about failure. That's really been the theme. So thank you so much for sharing what's been a very inspirational conversation.
Thank you, Adrian. It was absolutely lovely and therapeutic talking to you. I had fun. I really had a great time. And thank you for taking the time to have this conversation.
Well, wonderful. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it, and look forward to sharing with the audience. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. You too.